What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Sports Card Madness. I'm here with Nathaniel Butler. This is crazy. He is the sort of the official NBA photographer for the last 40 years. He has taken almost all of the photos. If you have NBA sports cards, very likely you are holding photos he has taken, and he's taking some of the most iconic ones over the years. So I thought it'd be really cool to bring him on and kind of talk about the stories behind the cards. And he's also taken a lot of cool photographs, like the Dream Team and several others, and should be a really fun conversation. Nathaniel, welcome to the pod, man.
Thanks for having me, Nick. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it. So this is wild. We were talking offline, and I thought you just did photos, and like that's cool. We're going to talk about Bill Russell and the NBA top 50 and 75. But then you dropped a bomb on me and said, Nick, me and like two other guys since like 86 have taken every photo for the NBA trading cards over the years. And that's pretty wild. So is that true? Just you and sort of a small posse taking the photos?
Yeah, exactly. When things first started, I'm based in New York. I have a very dear friend and colleague, Andy Bernstein, that people are familiar with. He was based in LA, and we would it started with the two of us. And because they were, the trading cards were licensed NBA products, they had to go through the NBA. And it started with basically just the two of us. It has since expanded to many more,
Sure.
team photographers over the years. Um, but Andy, you'd see a lot of shots from the Forum back in the day. A lot of my stuff was either from the old Continental Arena or a lot of them from Madison Square Garden, and it just sort of has blossomed over the years from that initial start.
Crazy. And it seemed like it started around 1986. So you've got Jordan's rookie card number 57, where he's dunking on the basket. Now
Right.
you didn't take that picture, right?
No, correct. A friend of mine who worked at the time, Norrin Trotman, worked for the New Jersey Nets, and he took that shot in there. I think there's other things like there's another Jordan card taken from that same game. People are
Hmm.
photo matching things, and those were Norrin's pictures. I was just starting out around that time.
Very cool. Who knew? You're just snapping a picture in the middle of a game and it turns into this iconic card that's just, really crazy. That's
Right,
awesome.
right.
Now, you mentioned you were involved in the Dream Team set, right?
Yes. That is prior to obviously 92. It was the first time ever professionals, NBA players were in the Olympics. So there was a huge marketing campaign leading up to, uh, the summer of 92. So all throughout that fall into the winter, we were shooting things. There were photos for the cards on McDonald's, the cups on this, on that. It
Yeah.
was a huge marketing campaign, and that was just an awesome experience.
And you got to travel with them, right? Obviously.
We traveled, we'd set up a shoot. I'd go to Boston to shoot Larry Bird or Chicago to shoot MJ, Patrick Ewing in New York. Again,
Interesting.
Andy did Magic and some of the West Coast guys. But just again, at the end of the day, I'm a huge fan. Uh,
Right.
but it was that entire experience from top to bottom of 92 was off the charts. So cool.
Wow. I didn't realize that you took them separately. It just seemed like one big media day with everybody there and you're like shooting and
No, it
shooting
was
and shooting.
different. It would have made sense to do that. Like we often do things at the All-Star game or the day before, when guys are centrally located.
Yeah.
Um, like the NBA at 50, NBA at 75 were both taken at the All-Star game. But this was just throughout the year when it fit into people's schedules, and just a lot of wonderful memories. And it's fun to look back and these sets of cards and
Yeah,
stuff.
it's
So
so
cool to
cool.
me. Yeah,
That's so cool. We'll talk later about what kind of negatives and other stuff you have. We'll do
right.
that a little bit later before, and we'll get into the photos. I found out that you are responsible for a very infamous card. For those in the audience, there is a Mark Jackson card. Mark Jackson is a great announcer. he played on the Knicks. He wasn't setting the world on fire. He's a good player, and an entertaining announcer, really funny guy. And there is a specific card of his in a PSA 10 that might be worth 800 to $1,000. And if you're wondering why, especially given the context right now, it's because it has the Menendez brothers on the card sitting courtside. So Mark Jackson's about to dish off a pass, and the brothers, they're sitting in the court on courtside. And I know I've read some research on this, and the research points to it being within a few days of the actual crime, which is pretty crazy.
Right.
And you snapped that photo, right?
Yeah, obviously. And it's funny, Mark and I went to college together, so we're good friends. Um, Obviously, I had no clue, who's in the front row at the Garden. That I'm focusing on the game and shooting, the action and shooting Mark. And one of the PR directors, years and years later, I think was the first person to realize that they were sitting there front and center, because we all know, like, the the value of someone sitting courtside at Madison Square Garden. Even back then, it was a huge deal.
Sure.
And they just happened to be in the background.
Yeah, those guys are so there's a Netflix series obviously that's come out recently, and the warden is just really pissed off because people are bombarding them with this card to get the Menendez brothers to sign it. They're two separate prisons. I'm guilty of this. I've tried 4 times unsuccessfully. And they're just getting all crazy fan mail now because of the show, and they're getting them to try to sign the card, which is pretty funny. That's
So
wild.
so what is the, like, just as a fan, what is the value of having one of them sign it? Because it is a terrible story at the
Of
end of the
course, it's not. It's
day.
it's like having like like Jeffrey Dahmer sign a card, right? It's not like, wow, look at this cool guy. It's more like this is an infamous photo and it's signed by the person who's infamous. And I don't know. I don't think any have sold. I haven't seen any.
Right,
I'm just a weirdo with autographs, and that's
right,
why I want it. I'm not like, oh, these guys are awesome. I'm like, woo, I
right,
want their autograph. But
right.
I think it's just a weird. I don't know.
Okay.
I
No,
collect strange stuff, but
right,
believe it or not, there's probably some value there. I could see that selling for a couple $1,000s for
right,
sure. I mean, the card on its own, that card without the Menendez brothers is a $5 to $20 card,
right,
regardless of the condition. But
right,
with the Menendez brothers on it, it's an $800 to $1,000 card and a
right.
PSA
No, it's
10.
so it's so
So
crazy.
it's weird, and I mean, there's other weird little courtside appearances of things too. But
Sure.
that's so funny that you took that
Right.
picture. And I had thought when I looked at that card, I'm like, this photographer knew what he was doing, but it hadn't even come out yet that they did anything. They hadn't even committed the crime yet. So of course you didn't. It's just two
Yeah,
random people.
correct. It was just there happened to be in the front row. You're shooting. There wasn't, like, they weren't out on bail or something. And no one knew even what had transpired at that
Crazy.
at that point.
That's
A
wild.
little,
I mean,
a
it's cool
little,
to
a little
have.
bizarre. A little
Yeah,
bizarre for
it's
sure.
great to have evidence of your work all over the place, for better or worse. I imagine that PR call was pretty funny. Hey, great photo,
Right.
cool set. Can't change it now. Whoops.
Um,
We got a problem.
yeah, right. I don't know. I'd rather be associated with some other things. We'll do that.
And
Something
that's what we're going
a
to
little
get
more
into
a little
next.
more
So
positive.
now, my favorite photo that you've ever taken, and for those on YouTube, I'm going to flash these so you can look at them and everything. Um, and if you're on audio, I recommend you go to YouTube just to see some of these. So my favorite is the Bill Russell photo with the rings. So he's got that look, and he's got a bunch of rings on. He obviously has 11 rings. I'm a Celtics fan. I know I've got a signed jersey on my wall right there.
Yikes,
That
that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, man. I have a whole Celtics spread over there, Bird and Russell and everybody. So that photo's awesome. I wanted to hear the story behind that, because there's a couple little wrinkles that I thought were funny.
Right. Well, there was a project, NBA at 50, in 1996 going into 97, and NBA was putting out a coffee table book, and part of the project was to shoot portraits of the players that had been announced for that team. Again, me being a fan, it was huge. I got to shoot Walt Frazier, Willis Reed, my idols growing up as a Knicks
Oh,
fan,
right. You're a Knicks
uh,
guy. Right.
which was very cool. And then obviously Bill Russell. So conceptually, we're discussing, how to shoot a portrait or what to do. And it's for Bill Russell, it's easy. Like 10 fingers, 11 rings, you do that. So that was the creative for the shot. But then come to find out he didn't have 11 rings and he didn't receive a ring for every championship. No one really knew about that.
Wow.
Um, so we had to borrow rings from teammates and some of the front office people in order to signify, the 11 rings. And it's
So
a
at the time, right? So you're taking the photo and you're like, hey guys, I need a few more rings to make this look
yeah, no, we had it.
consequential.
We got 11 rings. We didn't get any spares. We had a couple of Bills and some of his other teammates. I think Tommy Heinsohn, some of the front office staff.
So he borrowed Tommy's ring,
So
like
we borrowed
Havlicek.
other
That's so
other
funny.
people's rings. Um, and it was just one of those things, I think, in those days. And a lot of it is folklore. We tried to years later find out, factually what was correct. And there's a
Mm,
lot of folklore about it. But literally after getting a ring or two, some guys got watches, cufflinks.
interesting.
The crazy rumor was that the Celtics at the time had a sponsorship deal with Zenith, and guys received a Zenith TV.
Oh.
Um, so someone pointed out to me recently that, well, a Zenith TV from 1963 would probably still be working today, but a Bill Russell ring just recently sold for $700,000.
Yeah, that's probably a
So,
little bit of
there's a
cash.
little trade-off there.
That's funny though. You
Um,
just assume like the ring thing's been around forever. Everybody gets rings, but he won them ages ago, and
I,
they had
I
different
think it right.
policies.
I think it has become. I was in Boston last night for them getting their number 18
Mhm.
championship rings, and the rings were like the most
Yeah,
not
huge.
gaudy in a bad way, the crazy, most beautifully designed rings we've ever seen. Every year, they always outdo the year before.
Of
Now,
course.
like rings are the thing. No,
Right.
no pun intended.
Crazy. That's an awesome story. So I have one other photo that I really love because I love basketball from the 90s and early 2000s. So again, I'm going to flash it on the screen. There's a
Right,
Stefan Marbury photo where it looks like he is literally flying. Like it looks like he's about to dunk it. And you can't see the ground. It looks like he's in the sky. You took that photo, right?
right, right.
What's the story behind that? How did you make that work?
You know what? As part of the rookie um, program, we would always shoot all of the rookies together for the first time, um, and it was for a lot of the marketing material. A lot of the trading card companies would want new, fresh material. You can't wait until the season starts,
Hmm,
um, and we don't have an opportunity to shoot outside too often. Typically, we're in a hotel ballroom or a practice facility or something. And it just worked out that I was able to go outside. Um, and I loved Steph. I'm from New York. I watched him in high school and throughout, his 2 years at Georgia Tech. Um, and I just had this idea of doing that and did lighting a certain way to make it look a little darker, and he was into it, which helps. He was the subject who was into it.
good.
Um, and I loved that particular photo. It's just cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
so cool. That's my second favorite after Russell.
okay, no, that's nice.
Actually,
And
what is your favorite photo?
you know what? It's hard. People often ask me
Probably
that.
can't pick it, right?
It's difficult. No, but I'll have a favorite for a while, and then I get greedy. I always want something else.
Yeah,
you know but that's just how I am. You're never satisfied. You're always looking for the next best
of
moment
course.
you
Of
know
course.
um but I love the ones that have legs that stand the test of time.
Oh,
That
yeah.
that makes it very cool.
Now the NBA top 50, you were part of that, and you
Right,
were part of the NBA top 75, correct?
right.
Now you took the official like wide angle photo of all of them, right?
Yes, yes.
What is that like hurting 75 NBA players into a photo, getting the sizes right and all of
You
that?
know what? It's not easy. We have some NBA people that helped with the placement of the guy. You don't just say, "Oh,
Point guards go in front.
right, exactly." Big guys in the back, and they're all big guys, you know. So it does require a lot of pre-planning. Uh, and then you get into the minutia of the photography component is not easy. You have to light a large area like that.
Mm.
Uh, you don't ever have a lot of time. You can't have people blinking. NBA doesn't do Photoshop
Oh,
on
that's right.
anything. So
Jeez.
if like Bill Russell has a funny look on his face and Michael Jordan is smiling, that's not a
Oh,
great. So that as the photographer, that is very stressful.
oh, so much
But
anxiety.
yeah, it's definitely a sleepless night prior to that because literally I probably clicked the button that NBA at 50. I shot 4x5 film, which is you advance it, you pull it out, put the slide. I probably shot 6 or 8 frames total. It's not like bing, 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 where you have
Right.
20 shots to choose from, you know? So it is pretty stressful, a big sigh of relief when you develop the film at then and look at it. 75 we shot on digital.
I was going to say at least
25
75 you
years
have
later,
instant feedback, right?
we had some instant, but unfortunately at 75, some of the older guys had passed, you
Oh,
know,
right.
and that's where, some of these photos do have, historical significance for the documenting the history of the league.
Yeah, it's important. It's
Right,
amazing.
right.
So how long did the 75 photo take? 2 hours?
No, no, no. It was we got in at like 4:30. We had it all planned. We got in at like 4:30 in the morning to set up the risers. As I said, some of the guys were older, so we had railings to help them get into position. We had all the name tags, and then lighting, and
Mm.
then the guys filtered in. I want to say at 11 o'clock ish or so, and literally, you put them in position, and the shoot was under 10 minutes.
Oh, that's not bad. That's not terrible.
It was it was
I think the
it
planning
was
beforehand
it
helps
was
with the height and
yeah,
everything.
of course. And then at what I'm very focused. I at one point I turned around and there were, probably over 100 people in the private room
Yeah.
with their phones
Snapping
and
away and filming
right,
away and everything. And
right.
you're trying to take like the one perfect photo of everybody.
But it's very special and it has such meaning to me.
Yeah.
Um, and then the guys did little break. Some people had to go to other events, but others sit and talk. We did a Lakers photo.
Just pausing the episode here quick to tell you about DraftKings' new app, Pick Six. If you think your team is going to score more than 100 points, or your favorite point guard is going to score more than 4 3-pointers, this is how it works. You actually pick 2 to 6 players of the same sport, and you choose if they will have more or less of a stat: points, assists, rebounds, whatever. You lock them in, you compete against other opponents for a shot at big cash prizes. If you download the new DraftKings Pick Six app now, you can actually use code MADNESS6. That will allow you to play $5 and actually get $50 in credits guaranteed. Now back to the show.
Uh,
Oh, yeah.
Jerry West. I'm a Knicks fan, but I was a huge Jerry West fan.
Awesome.
And he was talking. We had, Kareem and Shaq and the other, and he pointed a spot to where Kobe should have been in that
Mm,
photo, and
wow.
it was crazy, touching that he even then in that moment he was thinking of, oh, well, this is where Kobe should be sitting in this Laker group, you know.
Crazy.
Um, so yeah,
Wow. So just taking it a little more current here, you were there for breaking Kareem's all-time scoring record, right?
right, right,
And then I know there's a locker room photo where he's kind of holding up, the points on a sign.
right.
Did you take that photo as well?
Yeah, and that was something that, we had thought of ahead of time. And knowing that LeBron is such a historian of the game, he truly is. His basketball mind is off the charts.
Hmm.
So I was fortunate enough to, to be at that game. I really wanted to be at that game. So we get the shot on the court. They did a little ceremony, whatever. But that was something that wasn't spur of the moment. We had thought of that. I hadn't
Hmm.
discussed it with him per se, but with some other NBA people, and they were like, you know what, LeBron would be into that because he does understand the significance. The Will Chamberlain photo of his 100 points is epic,
Right.
you know. So LeBron, we were hanging out in the locker room afterward, and he saw me pull out the piece of paper, and I had written on it. And
Oh, you actually wrote the number down?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nice.
He,
That's awesome. I was going to ask
he
how it went
smiled.
down.
He smiled. I need to get him to sign that. That would be a good collectible.
What,
Have
the
him,
point
him,
thing?
him sign that point, the piece of cardboard that the points are written on.
Oh, I'm sure he'd
Uh,
sign that for you. I mean,
uh,
geez, come on.
but it was just cool because like I said, it was a historical moment. He appreciates the history of things. Last night he had the first ever game playing with Bronny, which is mind-boggling
It's
when you
cool.
think of it. So that lended itself. Again, I think it was 2 clicks, him holding it up, big smile, and it's awesome. It's now a part of NBA history.
Very cool. So let's talk about history a little bit more. You've got 40 years of photography in the NBA. What are you sitting on like that you keep personally? Do you keep any negatives from the photos you've taken in the 80s and 90s? Do you have any type 1 photos, type 2 photos,
Right.
anything interesting like that?
I do have some old negatives and old type ones. Working for the NBA. They own a lot of the more, when I wasn't first working for them, but subsequently working for them, NBA, owns the rights to that stuff.
Oh,
Uh, but
interesting.
I do have some of the older stuff. The type ones are very cool. Um, because no one knew at the time that they would become so valuable.
Right.
Um, and what people might not know is that basically the type ones came about because of newspapers, you know, and now newspapers shoot digital. There aren't as many newspapers around.
Hmm.
There is a very finite number of images that are out there.
Yeah.
You know, like the Chicago Tribune could have, you know, 2 or 3 pictures from a Michael game that are actual prints. You
Right.
know, it's not like there's hundreds of them out there, but for each game they would make a print or two that to run in the newspaper the next day. That kind of thing. Baseball is cool with the old type ones, but in the advent of digital, things like that just don't exist
Of
anymore.
course. Yeah. It's like movie stubs, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's cool that you've
Um,
got negatives though. That's pretty special.
um,
Like you've got the original source of things, and that's
Well,
really
I
neat.
think that's the next big step, to be quite honest, because that is the template for creating the image. People could be wanting to collect a print or something, but
Sure.
the actual negative that made the print takes things to a whole nother level in terms of collecting.
Yeah. Get your type ones signed if you got any good ones. That's my
Uh,
recommendation. Um,
It's so funny because back when I was a kid, there were things about getting it signed like devalued or deface the
oh
card.
yeah,
It has
sure.
gone the whole gamut of things. Recently, there were the Jordan cards that they got signed, but they didn't look great.
Yeah.
Uh, so like I always thought that would like devalue the
Yeah, so
card.
for the audience, he's referring to a special double secret Michael Jordan signing that occurred maybe early this year, where I actually know who did this, but I haven't mentioned the name, but I figured out who it was. He had 6 cards. They were PSA 10s signed by Jordan. He paid 5 figures to have PSA come witness and remove them and crack them and make sure they didn't change from PSA 10s. Had Jordan sign them in a Sharpie that Jordan's team wanted, and that's the reason it came out that way, not the one that he wanted. I would have done thin Sharpie. Um, and yeah, now they're pretty priceless cards. They were on display at the National. So
Right,
very interesting. Um, Nathaniel, let's talk about your book. You have a new book out,
right,
and for the audience, I'm going to put a link for this book. So for those on audio, it will be in the show notes. For those on YouTube, it'll be in the description and the comments, a link that you can get this. But basically, it's a book that summarizes a lot of your photography and everything you've done over these 40 years. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, people obviously I've been doing this a long time. People kept saying, when you're going to do a book? And it was like, okay, it would be cool. I'm busy. Like,
Yeah.
during COVID, like everyone else, the world slowed down. I started going through files and things, and then realized that I was coming up on my 40th year, which is kind of crazy. And it started becoming more of a real project then, gathering the images, working with Getty and the NBA, and getting the old images together and things. And it just sort of took off from there. Um, Started off being fun, um, became a little stressful with deadlines and things. I still, there's always like, oh, I wish I had done this. So what gets in, what doesn't. But one of the cool things about it, I think, again, as a fan, is that I reached out to a lot of the players. There are over 50 players and coaches that contributed with quotes, like have the players talking and basically doing the captions for the photos.
Mm.
And Dave McMenamin and I have been friends for many years, and he helped, with the writing of that and transcribing their quotes. But I want to hear what John Starks has to say about the dunk, or
Yeah.
what Ray Allen has to say about his three in Game 6 in Miami.
Or what Stefan Marbury said about making you look like he's flying in the sky. I read
Right,
that. It was really cool.
right. So I think that adds a different layer, and I think that that's pretty cool. We didn't get everyone based on deadlines, but literally, like I said, over 50 players and coaches, and I think it's pretty cool.
Awesome. So, how can people get this book? I just want to make sure, like, where is it available
You know
exactly?
what? It's the old, like, wherever books are sold, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I think most retail stores have it if they don't
Mhm.
have it in your, neighborhood
And what's
bookstore.
the name of the book so people can search it?
It's Courtside, 40 Years of NBA Photography.
Okay. Yeah, should be easy to spot. But again, I'll include the Amazon links in everything for you. Now, what about, do you want to leave a way for people to get in touch with you? Maybe they're interested in past NBA stories or some of the photos you've taken over the years. Do you have an
Sure,
Instagram or something like
sure.
that?
My Instagram is at Natly Photo, Natly Photo. And I get DMs all the time, and do, try to get back to people, because it's like I said, we're all fans, and we've all taken different paths to get where we are.
Mhm.
Uh, and I do try to respond to everyone who does a DM. So at Natly Photo.
All right, perfect. I'll include that as well in the links. Nat, man, this was interesting. I did not expect to talk to the very person that's taken some of the most iconic photos I've ever seen in basketball and on cards. Like it's wild. You've been involved in the NBA for so long, and this is just like the tip of the iceberg of the story. So I recommend the audience go check out that book. It's very cool. It's almost like a history of the NBA. If you like basketball at all, um, it's pretty awesome.
Good holiday gifts.
There
That's
you
what
go. That's
that's what the
perfect.
publisher's telling me. Like, and it does make sense. Young, old, whatever. If
Of
you're a sports
course.
fan or hoops fan, good holiday gift.
Yeah, you're still taking photos. You have a picture of Jason Tatum holding up his son with the confetti flying around. So you're still
Right.
out there. It has current stuff, old stuff. Um, yeah, very cool. Nat, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate your time. It was a blast talking with you.
No, thank you, Nick, for having me. It's always fun to talk hoops.
You got it.